Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 9. I've got pastor and CrossFit coach Jake Spielbauer with me. He's going to tell us what not to do in the grocery store. And for all you Frozen fans, he's going to lay down the Elsa principle, and it has nothing to do with letting go. Hold tight. We'll be right back.
Well, good morning, Jake Spielbauer.
Hello, Kyle.
So I just want to set the stage here. So Jake and I go a long way back. I mean, we were in high school together. I mean, grew up in similar circles. We even played in a band together, which has been awesome. So it's been, maybe the world doesn't need to remember that, but.
Yeah, for some reason, I want to say that my first memory of you was actually in middle school.
Okay.
So this is before we even got to high school, and I want to say that you had a shirt that had an orange on it, and it was like a band. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it was
like Supertones.
It was a Supertones shirt. I was going to say it was a ska band shirt. And for some reason, I have this image of you wearing a Supertones shirt with a big orange on it. And it was blue, I think.
It was blue.
Had an orange on it.
Wow.
I don't know why that sticks out in my memory, but I think what probably caught me up was, there are very few people who could relate to all the Christian subculture kind of punk and ska bands that I listened to in middle school. So I just thought, wow, Kyle's the coolest. He gets it. He listens to cool music.
It was basically the beginning of eHarmony.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Common interest, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. No. Oh, man. Yeah. Woo. Did I have a beard back then?
No, but you might have been on that path. I know at that point I already had fully developed mutton chops. That was like the first thing to come in for me.
I probably kind of had like a dirty stash, Probably kind of I think I remember having to shave it. Anyway, this is way off topic.
Yeah.
Our listeners are getting a good laugh this morning. So, Jake, you are a pastor. Your husband and father, you are a CrossFit coach. Yeah. But our listeners probably have no idea, for the most part, who you are. So, tell us, man, who are you? Just a bit about yourself, where you hail from, what you're drinking this morning.
Yeah, well, I'm drinking anything with espresso in it this morning. My philosophy is as much caffeine as I can get into my body as possible early in the morning. I've been working as a pastor for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
Here at Lifebridge Christian Church in Green Bay, and this has really been kind of my thing. I grew up in the Green Bay area and went to high school here in Green Bay. I did my undergrad at Marquette University in Milwaukee, and pursued a political science degree there. The Marquette University. We like to, make sure we let people know. Pursued an undergraduate degree in political science, and somehow, kind of through some different circumstances, I ended up taking a job in youth ministry.
So why poli-sci? What was the goal initially?
I think what attracted me to political science was thinking in terms of systems. I think one of the things that is probably fair to say is one of my passions as well as one of my giftings is thinking abstractly and thinking strategically. And I actually started, when I started my undergrad, I started in physical therapy and athletic training. And, I enjoyed it. It was great. Had some cool experiences as I pursued that my freshman year. But what really attracted me to studying poli-sci and eventually getting my degree in third world studies and international affairs and economics was I loved thinking about why does the world work the way that it does, and taking a step back to see more aggregate pictures of why people behave the way they do. How do not just individuals but nations interact, and what are the assumptions that shape the way that the world operates in that regard. And I had always just been fascinated in general by a couple things. Notably, I've always had a strong heart for I think people who suffer. And so I, was very drawn to studying why does poverty happen, not just on a micro scale, but on a macro scale. What are the things that happen in the world that create systems in which people are not able to climb out or help themselves.
Interesting.
And so I really enjoyed that. I liked the critical thinking.
Yeah. And the only greater mystery than, how nations, work and relate to one another is teenagers. Right?
Right, yeah.
So you said, I'm going to do youth ministry and solve it all.
That's right, yeah. So, and that's obviously a pretty interesting story in and of itself.
But how'd you get there?
That's what attracted me to studying there. What ended up getting me there was a girl, of course. Of course, the story revolves around a girl.
And it's Valentine's Day for our listeners.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can't see, we've got a very beautiful bouquet of, I guess, would you call that maybe purple, pink?
Yeah, there's some magenta hue. Yeah.
Flowers here on the table for us, and we're at Copper State Brewing Company drinking some Copper Rock coffee. So, but so it was a girl. Yeah,
I met my wife in 8th grade, and we were friends for a long time. She came kind of crashing back into my life.
Did she have an OC Supertones shirt on?
She did not. She was not. I was kind of the scummy punk rock skateboarding kid, and she was very clean cut. It was. Kind of one of those stereotypical teen romances, except I was interested and she wasn't for the better part of a decade. So she came kind of crashing back into my life my sophomore year of college, and when we started dating, I started attending church with her when I was home on the weekends. And through that, I built a relationship with the senior pastor at what was then First Christian Church in Green Bay, but is now LifeBridge. And so as I was preparing to graduate from college, I had a few different job opportunities. I had an internship lined up doing organizational work in Milwaukee. I had an offer from a family friend to go into finance and pursue a finance degree and work for their business. And then, kind of at the last minute, we had this crazy offer on the table to say, hey, our youth pastor is going on the mission field, so would you consider maybe moving to Green Bay and taking a job in student ministry, which made zero sense. But as we prayed about it, we felt really confident that this is where the Lord wanted us to go. And so we did what every college kid dreams of. We left Milwaukee, where we had lived our first year of marriage, moved in with my in-laws and lived in the basement, and took a job working with high school students. And ever since then, I think it's just been a crash course of kind of learning on the job, because this is not a career path that, as I was making my way through middle school and high school, if anyone had asked me what I was going to do with my life, this wouldn't have been a route that I would have even, considered.
Yeah.
So,
and all those aptitude tests, the youth pastor didn't show up.
That doesn't commonly show up on those strength finder type things in high school.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're married now.
Yeah.
Do you have little Spielbauers running around?
We have 5 little Spielbauers running around.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've got four daughters.
Wonderful.
And 1 little boy. And they're
so great.
They're great. They're phenomenal. They're a tool of God's refining work in my life all the time. And nothing's challenged me to grow as a man more than the task of being a husband and a father.
Yeah, it's a terrifying privilege.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's good. So you aren't still the youth pastor, though, at LifeBridge? Yeah, so talk to us about the recent transition that you took over responsibilities to be the preaching pastor.
Yeah, so I served in student ministry for 9 years, and what I've always said about that job was I was happy to do student ministry forever. I love student ministry, and one of the things that I appreciate about students is students a lot of times haven't learned to fake it like adults have, and so a lot of times the conversations that we get to have in youth group, I'd say, man, I wish we could have these types of conversations, this type of honesty, this type of authenticity, all throughout the church, and sometimes I found that students seem to have an easier time kind of letting those walls down. So I was in student ministry for 9 years. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Got to have some amazing experiences. And a few years ago, as our senior pastor started looking at retirement and what his transition to retirement was going to look like, we started having conversations about what it might, how it might look for me to step into primary preaching pastor role at LifeBridge. And so through those conversations, fall of 2018 was kind of the time when my turn to step up to the plate, and so the church asked me to step into that role, and that's what I've been doing for the past year and a half or so, and it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done, but very much one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, and I love what I do.
Yeah, and you also serve on the board for a school in town.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
That's right. I serve on the board for Providence Academy in Green Bay. It's a classical Christian school.
What is
K through 12
classical Christian?
Yeah, classical education, just to break it down real simply, views the student's development in 3 stages, which would be what we'd identify as grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And so kids that are in the grammar stage, when they're younger, basically their minds are just sponges. They soak up facts, figures, and information. And then as they move into middle school and into adolescence, in the logic stage, they start to learn how to connect the dots between, not just what has happened, but why things happen. And finally, we see kind of the final completion of a student's development in the rhetoric stage as they get later into high school, which then teaches them not only to know facts and figures and connect them and see the ideas of kind of how things work and why things happen the way that they do, but then to take the next step and then formulate opinions and be able to give a rational defense for their response to those things. So the way we see these things, work in a student's life is, as they get into high school, not only understanding why the world is the way it is, but then in response, specifically as a Christian, being able to articulate and defend a Christian worldview in response to those things. So, students graduating at Providence Academy, in order to graduate, have to present a thesis to the board, because at that point we expect them to be able to, articulate an argument and defend it. And the benefits, we'd say, of that system of learning is that it naturally kind of caters to a student's development as they grow physically and mentally. It takes advantages of their strength at each stage of development.
Yeah, so that's neat. Is that a new method of education?
Right. So the name is probably a dead giveaway. Classical education is not a new idea. Yeah. In fact, it traces its origins back, to ancient Greek, and kind of the foundations of Western civilization, right? Yeah. And so it's a kind of a traditional, or maybe not a new idea, but we do believe that we're innovators in education by kind of identifying maybe the sense of returning it to these things. And actually, what we've found is, this method tends to work pretty well. Notre Dame just published a study in partnership with the Notre Dame University. Just published a study in partnership with I think it's I'd have to check on this, but Sears Institute? Siersky. Is that the one? I might be wrong on that. I'd have to check that. So forgive me if that reference is wrong. But Notre Dame just published a study comparing classical Xerxes. Sorry. Just published a study comparing students from a classical Christian background to their peers across a number of categories, including educational development, individual kind of personal development, and also spiritual development. And what we've found is the results were kind of stunning. I mean, I think we've always been confident that classical Christian education works, but what we've found is it works exceedingly well, and kind of in just about every measurable category, students who come from a classical Christian background are outperforming their peers. And another example is we just had a program called Reading Connections in the area that measured that has kind of worked to improve literacy scores in a number of different school environments, and we found that 100% of our fourth graders are reading two grade levels above where they currently are. And to give you a frame of reference for kind of how stunning that is, I think just recently here in Wisconsin, the numbers that were published found that 40% of students in Wisconsin are reading at their grade level. So 40% statewide is the average of students that are actually reading at their grade level. But at Providence, we've got 100% of our fourth graders reading 2 grade levels above where they're at. So
that's amazing. So the way that you described it with the 3 stages, I get the method there, but I guess what makes it actually Christian? Like, is classical automatically Christian, or could you have a school that's classical and not Christian, or what? where does the Christian aspect come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. You could absolutely have a classical education that's not in a Christian context. What makes it specifically Christian is Christ, and knowledge of Christ is the foundation of every class, every subject. So one of the things that attracted us to the school, we were planning to homeschool our kids. We were pretty set on that, and we went to a breakfast that Providence had put on, at which our headmaster, his name's Ron, gave a speech about, why Providence. He gave us the pitch.
Yeah.
And he said something that stuck with me forever, and I think that every Christian parent should take to heart in making decisions about their kids' schooling and education. And hey, I'm not the one to say this is what everybody should do. All I'm saying is this is, I think, what we need to wrestle with in making that decision. He said, hey, Colossians is clear that everything was created by, through, and for Jesus Christ. Therefore, to teach any discipline or subject apart from the knowledge of Christ is to teach a lie. Because no discipline can be properly understood without an adequate knowledge of the Creator. Right? Mathematics cannot be taught apart from God because God created mathematics, right? And that's really the idea. And so the idea of classical Christian education is that Christ is the foundation for our study of every discipline. And so as our students are learning about history, for example, my second grade son is learning about ancient Egypt. Well, they're learning about ancient Egypt. He could spit off facts and figures and dates and the names of pharaohs and all this stuff, but then he can also point us to the story of Joseph in Scripture and connecting what we know about history to what the Bible teaches us about.
Not two different histories, but one.
But one unified history. And so Scripture kind of bleeds into and informs our study of all these things.
That's interesting. So it sounds like your work, it's at Providence, is really an extension of your ministry at LifeBridge.
Absolutely.
Would you see that or say
yeah,
that?
I think that's fair to say. I see one of the greatest contributions that I can make with my personal time and effort. I think one of the things we wrestle with as leaders or as people working in public roles is what to do with our time, how to manage our time. And one of the tensions I've always faced is I only have so much time. I've got 24 hours, I've got 7 days, just like everybody else. And so one of the things I've had to do is ask, where is my time best spent?
Yeah.
And where can I invest my time that it's going to have the most yield or the most fruit in terms of effectiveness and I guess also benefits for others. And so if my goal as a pastor, or as I think this is the responsibility of every Christian, is to be productive in advancing God's kingdom, where are my efforts best spent? And I can't think of a better place to spend my efforts than investing in the success of a school that's training students to become godly leaders. Because what we see every student that comes through Providence is being equipped to become a leader in the workplace, a leader in their church, and being trained not to necessarily see themselves as, hey, a bull of a personality that just dominates others. That's not what a leader is, but someone that takes responsibility to lead by example, to pursue excellence in whatever they're doing. If someone graduating from Providence goes on to work, being a custodian at a local company, well, man, they're going to learn to lead as the best possible custodian that they could possibly be.
Probably start their own custodian services.
Right, exactly, and that's really the hope, is we're just training them to pursue excellence. And so, our vision statement at Providence is partnering with parents to create godly, or to help raise godly leaders.
Yeah, So the connection that I see is, with your work at LifeBridge, I'm assuming you guys are teaching the Bible, the Christian worldview on Sundays.
Absolutely.
And then what Providence is doing in your work at Providence is helping people to that tactical, tangible, or application of this. So this is what it means now to be a Christian in all of life.
Right.
It'd be the same thing if someone was a Muslim and they went whatever their form of worship was, and then they were also taught and instructed to, this is what being Muslim looks like every day of the week, right?
Yeah.
Or someone who's an atheist. They don't have I don't think a place of worship, but they might think through, what does it mean to be an atheist in every area of life, Monday through Saturday, whatever it might be. And so from the Christian worldview, from your worldview, you're helping students to grow and be really incredibly consistent with the Christian faith.
That's right.
which is an overflow of your work on Sundays, and then throughout the week, and obviously Providence is doing that dirty work, and you get to be a part of that board to help cast that vision. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So you guys can't see Jake, but he's ripped. He's a CrossFit coach, and that's another one of the things that he does. And how'd your kids? How'd your wives? How'd your husbands?
Stop it.
So how long have you been doing CrossFit?
I've been doing CrossFit since 2012. I work at a gym called True North Performance here in Green Bay.
Cool.
It's a little CrossFit gym. And, I really just do that to maintain my physical health and well-being. And it gives me an opportunity to get outside the church walls and connect with people in a different way. So coaching is an opportunity for me to build relationships and invest in people's lives. And, there's nowhere where people are often more open and just kind of, when you're working out in front of other people or with other people, it's just a very vulnerable place to be. And a lot of times for people, some of the things that we experience, working out and struggling through things, is a lot of times personal stuff comes out. People who are struggling in other areas of life, and so one of the things I really enjoy about coaching is not just the idea of being in the gym helping people get healthy physically, but oftentimes I get the chance to have really awesome, deep conversations with people, because people, when you're out on the gym floor, often people are at their most real, I've found. But also for me, that's really a personal thing for my personal mental health. Awesome. Just maintaining an active lifestyle is really important, and so that's something really enjoyable I get to do.
Sweet. So pastor, CrossFit coach, board member, why? Like, when you wake up in the morning, what keeps you wanting to do these things? What's that pulse inside Jake that says, this is why I do what I do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've wrestled with that at times. Something, and we'll get more into this later, something that I've often struggled with is feeling, I've lived a lot of my life doing what I thought I should do, doing what I thought I had to do. And so it hasn't been until later in life that I've gotten to ask the question, what do I want to do? And what's the best thing for me to do that will allow me to pursue my passions? And what am I passionate about? And I've had to really stumble into that, because for my whole life, I never really had a clear picture of that. And probably a lot of people can relate to that, even people listening today. If you'd asked me in high school what I want to be, I would have said, I have no idea. I went to, when I chose my undergraduate major, I opened up their list of, majors, found the one with the highest starting income, said, well, whatever's going to let me make the most money, that's probably what I should do. And that's how I ended up in the physical therapy program. And so,
and a youth pastor, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's definitely started youth ministry for the money. And I really had to wrestle with feeling pressure to do things. I do things because I think I should, maybe even at times because I thought, hey, well, this is what God wants me to do, so I have to do it. And I've really been able to take
people imposing expectations.
There are other people imposing expectations, and what I felt would reflect well on me, reflect well on my family. But I've really had the chance to step back and ask myself that question: why am I doing what I'm doing? And all I can think of is, when I die, many of the material things that I've done are simply going to fall by the ash heap of eternal insignificance. But if I'm able to do something that will help others to know Christ, I guess really how I view it is, if my legacy can be investing in other people, in helping them experience transformation in their lives, I've realized that a lot of the things that I've done from a material standpoint, a lot of things that I'm going to do materially are going to fall on what I've heard referred to as the ash heap of eternal insignificance. And that means that a lot of the things that I accrue, the kind of the physical things around me are temporary, and when I die, they're going to be left here or go with me, whatever.
From dust to dust, right?
Dust to dust, man. But the one thing that does last beyond my life is what I've done for others. And if I can, in some way, work towards helping other people experience transformation, or give my time and effort to helping them, those are things that last beyond my life. And I think it's important for each one of us to think about what kind of legacy we're leaving. And even with how I help lead our staff as a pastor, I want my legacy to be not that, hey, I was a great leader and all this stuff and was successful in my areas of ministry. What I want to leave as a legacy is I helped other people be successful. All of us have a coaching tree, whether we recognize it or not. We all leave an impact on others. The question is, are we doing it on purpose, and are we doing it well?
Yep.
And so I can look back in my life and see the influence of other people that have really invested in me, and how important that was to my development. And I guess I think back and say, man, I hope when I'm on my deathbed that there are people, maybe even that I've never met, that because of the way that I've lived, that will benefit from hopefully the